Find out how the Stokke Scoot holds up after 5 years on today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Clueless Dad. Today we have another long overdue follow-up review. This is for my Stokke Scoot stroller. So my son is almost 5 years old. So I've had this stroller for, actually I got the stroller before I got the kid. So the stroller is basically 5 years old too. And now I've got 2 kids, so I've got 5 years of experience over the span of 2 kids using the stroller. And I wanted to do kind of a follow-up review, share what I like about it, what I don't like about it, how has it held up. That's probably the most important thing. How we ended up using it, and just give some feedback. So if you're interested in this, check out this video. So if you haven't already, you can check out my original follow-up video, which was made when my son was like 5 or 6 months old. I'll link to it somewhere. So that one, I pretty much stand by everything I said. But in that case, there were still like the unknowns of how will this thing hold up, will it wear out, etc. So let me add to that. I don't think there's anything I said in there that I don't still agree with. But let me just put some stuff in more context now that we have the experience. I should also note that we live in Hong Kong. We don't have a car, so we do use this stroller a lot for walking, and we also use it when we go shopping. So this video will also kind of touch on where we do use the Stokke Scoot and where we don't use the Stokke Scoot. So let me just jump right into it and talk about the different features of the Stokke Scoot. So first let's talk about the design features. So as I mentioned in my original video, the folding handle is great. Just takes up less space when it's parked in the house. Much better for fitting in elevators and navigating tight areas. The big basket is really the winner for the whole stroller as far as I'm concerned. And I'll talk about exactly why that is, but it is pretty big by almost every stroller standard. The big wheels are really, a winner. I mentioned in some of my other videos for like cheaper strollers with cheap wheels, totally kills it. In terms of the Stokke Scoot, the wheels are big. They hold up really well over 5 years. And that's really made this thing good for the urban jungle and the jungle as well. One thing that you probably don't think about but is a real bonus is this stroller can actually switch from forward facing to rear facing. So when you have a small kid, you can have him facing you when you're pushing. When it's a bigger kid who wants to see the rest of the world, he can be forward facing and you can still see through the little zip cover on the canopy. There is actually like a removable step which you can put in the front when the kid is small enough that they need to take an extra step to climb in. We've literally, I think, like never used it. The rain cover actually works really well when you remember to bring it. But one of the nice things is the fabric is, at least originally, I think it still is, Scotch guarded, so it's slightly water hydrophobic, whatever, water resistant. So if you're just out and it starts sprinkling, by the time you get home, the thing practically like totally dry still. Even if it starts raining really hard and you don't have the rain cover, if the canopy's down, it'll deflect the water, so maybe your kids' legs will get wet, but mostly keeps them dry. So fabric-wise, actually held up really well. I don't really notice any fading or wear on any of the fabric. So yeah, that part is pretty good. Speaking about the construction as a whole, the frame, this thing has a really strong frame, the aluminum frame in it. Pretty much held up perfectly. I think it might be a little bit looser and wobblier than when it was brand new, but it's still quite good, especially considering what the state of the industry is with some of the cheaper strollers. So this one has done quite well, and it can take a lot of weight. The plastics have held up pretty well, even including that like overpriced cup holder. No shattering, no fading from the sun, no nothing like that. Actually quite well done. The only like visible defect, aside from maybe a few scuffs here and there, is the foam on the handle on one side has kind of shrunk and pulled back. So there's a little bit of a gap there, but like if I didn't point that out, you probably wouldn't even notice it. So yeah, pretty good construction. This is the made in China one. I think some of the earlier ones from before I got mine would be like a 2016. The earlier ones were maybe made in Europe. This one is made in China, but totally no problem with the construction. Frame is good, fabric's good, plastic's good. Wheels have held up really well. I don't even notice that they're wearing that much. I've probably put on, hundreds of kilometers. Like we used to take this thing for like 5-kilometer walks every day when my son was first born where we lived. Just in the first year or two, probably put in several hundred kilometers. And even since then now, we still use it several times a week. The only like downtime where we weren't using this thing somewhat frequently was the 6-month span where my family was in Japan and I was here in Hong Kong by myself. So I just folded it up, put it in the closet, and there it stayed. Totally works fine now too. So like you could have a good gap between your kids and just pull this thing out of the storage closet, use it again. Seems to hold up quite well. It's aluminum and plastic, so it's not like it's going to rust. So one of the key things with strollers, aside from like mobility and utility, is actually portability. So this is the one thing on the Stokke Scoot, which is, I don't want to call it negative, but definitely not its strong suit. So it is big, it is heavy. That's great for carrying stuff, that's great for stability, but not so good for portability. So it does fold up reasonably easily, but it's big. So yeah, like you can shove it in the car trunk, but I wouldn't want to be doing that every day. I wouldn't want to have to carry it on an airplane, that's for sure. That's one of the main reasons why we have an ultra portable stroller in addition to this nice, good cruiser one. So yeah, don't be expecting to like carry groceries and your kid and the stroller like in your two arms while you're walking upstairs or anything like that, because that ain't happening with this guy. It is hefty. So let me talk about where this thing is the real winner, and that goes back to the capacity. So yeah, it's strong, it's sturdy, and it's got a big basket. So what we end up doing is we'll go out on like a weekend and we'll just do a bunch of different trips while taking the kids with us. So we'll go to the supermarket, then we'll go to the hardware store, then we'll go to the vegetable market. So we end up making multiple stops and just picking up more and more stuff. And with the use of plastic hooks and the nice big basket and whatever else, like we can end up sticking quite a lot of stuff in there. I'm talking like put a 10-kilogram bag of rice in the bottom and then shove everything in on top of that. And almost to the point where you actually want to take the kid out and just put more groceries on there. So this thing is almost like a shopping cart that can also fit a kid, rather than a stroller which has a little bit of storage on it. So yeah, it's quite strong, as you can see from this video. The only downside is when it's that loaded up, going up and down curbs, much less any kind of steps, is kind of a pain. You can carry a lot, but you just stay away from any kind of curb or stairs. So that caveat is important. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the price too before we wrap up. Anything from Stokke, actually kind of expensive. And that was one of the things in my original unboxing videos that I really harped on, was like, do you really need to spend $450 for a high chair when you can buy a Fisher Price one for $30 or whatever? Is it really 10 times better or 20 times better? Same thing goes for these strollers. Like, yeah, you can get a $100 stroller or even a $50 stroller. Do you need a $600 stroller? Well, now with 5 years of experience using this stroller and knowing they could probably last another 5 years easily, actually, okay, maybe it kind of is. So just as a first-hand data point, when I went back to the U.S. for one trip, we ended up buying a cheap stroller when we got there, and we figured, okay, we'll use it for a couple weeks, and then if we don't want to use it anymore, if it falls apart, we'll just throw it away. And that's basically what ended up happening. So yeah, you could go back to the U.S. 10 times and buy a $50 stroller and still come out ahead, but A, you've thrown away 9 or 10 strollers, and B, like your actual satisfaction while you're using it ends up being lower than having one really good stroller which holds up the whole time. So I kind of understand that now. Like, if you do have the money free to basically invest in like a lifetime stroller, the life of your kids growing up period at least, yeah, you might as well, if you can afford it. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But keep in mind that even if you are like not going to use it for 10 years, if you're only going to use it for 3 or 4 years, you can still resell it to somebody, get some of your money back, or hand it down to like a relative or something like that. So from a resources point of view, it's better to invest in something decent rather than waste it or just have it fall apart. So yeah, like I've kind of matured over the last 5 years in my perspective on these things. With almost all the Stokke stuff, I've been really quite happy with it. The overpriced high chair, the overpriced bathtub, the overpriced this, the overpriced that. Even the cup holder on these strollers is actually kind of worth it, even though it costs like $30 just for one piece of plastic. If it lasts the whole time, and in fact now I know firsthand it does last the whole time. So I think that's my like ringing endorsement, is that it has held up. It is quite good at certain things, like in this case, carrying lots of stuff. So if it meets your use case, if you're not putting it in and out of the trunk of a car a lot, if you're not going to try to take it like on an airplane, go for it. I think I definitely recommend it. If you are in the case where you need something to fly, consider an ultra portable, or consider a different Stokke stroller than this particular one. Yeah, so I think that's my main feedback. If you guys have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to share any of your first-hand experience with Stokke strollers, let me know in the comment section below. Consider subscribing. Definitely check out my other videos. See you guys next time. Bye.